What's up, data transformers? This is Bolaji, and welcome to the Data Careers Show, the show where we watch analytics engineers, data analysts, and data scientists transform their careers. Today, we're talking to a data leader who is focused on building a data-driven culture. 5 years ago, Liquid Web was a family-owned business with a business intelligence system that was run on one of the brothers' personal laptops. Oh, no, you gotta get the backstory on this one. Since then, this man has implemented 2 real BI platforms, designed processes and systems, and built trust with the executive team. Nice. But we gotta get into some fun facts. First, he wanted to go to clown school, but the Ringling Brothers Clown School closed before he got a chance. He also makes his own maple syrup. Might be doing some of that this weekend. And every job offer he's ever received over the past 8 years has come after juggling in the interview process. What in the world? Are we even going to get to any of the data questions? I don't know, but please help me welcome the Director of Information and Analytics at Liquid Web, Wade Wachs. What's up, Wade?
Awesome. Glad to be here, Bolaji. That was probably the best introduction I've had. That was fun.
This has been the most fun introduction I've gotten to give. My goodness. How in the world? I can't even get to the data stuff first. I got to clear this out of the way. Juggling and clown school?
So summer, I'm 16. I'm sitting in my bed. So we live next to a golf course. I live not in the golf course. We live next to it. But because we live so close, I had buckets of golf balls that we would just kind of pick up after walking by. I'd sit down in my room at one night, like 10 o'clock. And I said, I want to learn how to juggle. I have a gallon bucket of golf balls.
Yeah.
And I just start throwing them in the air. And eventually by the end of about a week, I can barely juggle 3 about like that. And by lit a passion, it hit my curiosity. And so I got into all sorts of site manipulation, juggling, Diabolo, flower sticks, cigar boxes. All of that led me down the path of, this is kind of fun. I'm enjoying this. Looked into clown school, and unfortunately the clown school, Ringling Brothers Clown School in Florida, had closed a year and a half before that. So all of that fun, but still enjoyed juggling and having a good time.
This is wild. Why don't we get into some data behind juggling? So first of all, I'm able to juggle 2 items. I've attempted 3, never pulled it off. Why is it so much more difficult to juggle 3 items than 2?
So in 2, we'll go for this second. Each hand is doing one thing at a time. You only have to really track one ball in the air. When you go to a third, you've got one in the air and both of your hands are doing things. And so there's still that one that's just kind of out there managing it, but you have to keep an eye on it. When you start getting into 4,
oh my gosh,
each hand has to track more than one item at a time. It becomes a lot of information to kind of keep in flight, keep straight in your brain.
That's crazy. The amount of hand-eye coordination. Oh my gosh, the multitasking. Are you able to juggle items of different weights or sizes?
Items of different weights, sure. Let's see what I have. So I have a little hedgehog here. A slightly larger juggling ball, a slightly larger one. So the little one will throw it off a little bit.
Yeah.
But it just takes a little.
This is amazing. We could just end the episode here.
So did I get the job? This apparently works everywhere else.
This is the secret, folks. You have found the Rosetta Stone for landing every... Okay, so you've had some pretty cool job titles over the past several years, Wade. You're currently Director of Information and Analytics at Liquid Web. Liquid Web is a web hosting company.
That's correct. Yeah.
I've actually been a customer of Liquid Web's in the past. Like, how did you get into that industry?
So I took a class in high school, got into some software networking, took a networking class through Cisco.
Right.
And my uncle was an electrician. He ran cables and things for various companies, and he got into pulling fiber cable for a web hosting company called Bluehost. And he called me one day. This was early 2000s, and they were in a huge growth phase. And he said, basically, they're hiring anyone that can do tech support. They just need, 20 or 30 people a month to add. 20-minute phone call with the COO, got a job offer, picked up and moved my family 2,000 miles across the country. And I fell in love with the web hosting industry. I worked for Bluehost, worked for Liquid Web for a while, helping people have presence online, even went for a little stint at Samcart before I came back to Liquid Web. Samcart was the same kind of thing, helping people grow their presence online.
Mm.
The technology, the data, the customer profile behind all of that is just one that I understand. And
This is so interesting to me. I was a teenager in college when the dot-com boom was happening, late 90s, early 2000s. We all thought we were going to start the next big thing that was going to sell for $1 million or whatever. So everybody was creating websites, hoarding domain names. I probably bought like 400 or 500 domain. I probably shouldn't say this on a recording. Way more than I could. I was like, oh, this one's going to sell. That one's going to sell.
Be the one.
Yes. And I'm interested in how, as the web has evolved and these walled gardens, social networks and such have been taking more and more of the traffic. We all sort of got into this Faustian deal with Facebook and these other presences where we're like, this seems to be the village square. Everybody's there. So I'm going to go to your walled garden and hopefully attract my people back to my website. And it worked for a few years until all of these walled gardens, these social networks said, psych, now we're just going to keep all the traffic. How is the business of individually owned websites doing these days? How are these sites surviving?
So I would say that definitely represents a portion of the internet that, especially when you talk about kind of like the lower end Bluehost type sites, definitely they focus on those things a lot. There's also a lot of small businesses that run their financial systems. They run their, billing systems on servers that need to run in the cloud. That B2B side of things where I get excited about, let us run the power, let us run the networking. You don't have to run your own server in the broom closet like so many businesses do. Let us keep that up and running so you can go focus on your business. And around these walled gardens you're talking about, deplatforming was a big thing in the mass awareness over the last 5 years or so. I think that's been kind of an interesting untapped market that there's some gets into political theory of whether which direction you want to go on that. And I'm not trying to bring that up here, but that concept of, do you own your data? Do you own your customers? In the web hosting space, we help our customers own and maintain and manage their data so that they can drive the business outcomes they need.
Yeah. So I want to see if I can connect the dots, Wade, in your career trajectory. You got into this really interesting industry when it was booming. You were a quality assurance manager for a while at Bluehost, NorthPoint, even at Liquid Web. But I want to know when you transitioned into data proper and when you fell in love with data. What was that origin story?
So if I go back a little further, Bluehost, I was there doing software testing. We had a database of all of our customers and how their plans function. And whenever we would come across a bug, an issue in the system, the first thing we would go do and see, how many times has this happened? And so we would open up a SQL console, look at our production database, and we would say, this customer's billing history ran into this situation. Let's try and recreate that history. Sometimes we'd find that happened twice. Sometimes we'd find that happened 10,000 times. And that was really where I fell in love with SQL.
Wow.
Which didn't know at the time I was going to make a career out of it. But fast forward a couple careers, I went and helped several software teams fix some of their delivery processes and testing, and landed at Liquid Web and was or the title of Agile Coach, but was still kind of just doing, how do we help the dev teams deliver value? We were, at that point, privately held company. I like to say that we made decisions based on indigestion and gut feelings. The brothers kind of ran their own things. They made decisions as they wanted to. When we were acquired by private equity, we brought a whole new management team in, and they said, we need to build this data-driven culture.
Okay.
And as one of the dev team leaders, a CTO came in and said, I need one of you to lead a product team. I need one of you to lead a data team. I said, I don't really know what data means, but that sounds fun. I'll go figure that out.
Wow.
And that was literally the conversation in the hotel conference room as the week of the acquisition.
That's crazy.
I didn't even know what that meant. I had software background. I knew technology. I knew web hosting things. All of these were old hat to me, but data analytics, OLAP cubes. So I had to go learn all sorts of interesting things in the course of 18 months. We actually implemented data stack several different times. We started down a vendor that had an ETL solution and a visualization all kind of blended together. that was very heavily built on top of OLAP cubes. That was a mess and difficult to understand. Our users didn't like it. So we spent a year going down that path, threw it away, started to go down another code generation ETL path, separating out our ETL from our visualization logic, and spent a year going down that path. This is where I really fell in love with what we were doing. We had beat our head against 2 years of trying to solve business problems, going really slow. We didn't know what we were doing. Like, it brought some of my software tester friends along with me to build this data team.
Nice.
And we were trying to rekey a type 2 slowly changing dimension across 10 years of history in a Postgres database. And it was not well keyed, not well indexed or partitioned anything. And the query was taking like 4 or 5 hours to do a month, and we had 50 months of data to go back through. So it was a week-long process that would fall over and break. And we got invited to one of the cloud database vendors. This was like 2018. So Snowflake led one of their data for breakfast events. We went to that, and we kicked the tires on Snowflake a little bit. We spun up a trial, and we came back and we said, let's just see it. So we uploaded all the historical data. We ran a query, translated it from Postgres, and in like a minute and a half, the whole history had completed what it needed to. I was like, okay, this is fun now. Now we're moving fast. Now we're doing things. And so we went through our third kind of implementation of a data stack in 3 or 4 years. We built on each one of them, and we weren't starting from ground zero. And in the process of that, we built our own version of DBT, which that was a lot of fun too, but I can talk about that when I talk about how I fell in love with DBT.
Very cool. Very cool. Goodness. A lot of these forks in the road, these sliding doors moments, sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time and you get nudged in one direction or another. I am interested, though. I like to ask this Harry Potter sorting hat type of question between how did you end up being a data engineer versus analyst versus scientist, or even if you call yourself an analytics engineer, maybe some of that choice was made for you. How would you categorize yourself today?
I like the word analytics engineer more than anything. I like that concept of owning the whole value chain of there's data that lives in the business and there's business decision makers that need access to that data. I like to live in that whole space in between. Not very dogmatic, though, in getting wrapped around words. I like to talk about what I do more than categorizing.
I appreciate that. Okay, why don't we switch gears, Wade, and talk about your day-to-day. For someone with your job title, what does that look like for a director of information and analytics at a hosting company?
One of the things I like about my day-to-day is that it can change dramatically from week to week, month to month. The last 3 months I've spent stuck in board meeting prep with executives trying to help understand strategy and historical data. I've spent very little time writing repeatable SQL pipelines, and a lot of time extracting data out of our data warehouse to feed into Excel and make quick decisions.
Right.
This week, I'm spending a lot of time adjusting DBT models and writing SQL to operationalize and drive some of the execution that came out of that process. Sometimes I get to play in systems engineering roles of, this server's down and we can't SSH in there because our data pipeline's down. We've got some Python running somewhere and, our marketing reports aren't functioning. I like learning new things and helping the organization. So I like the fact that I get to see a little bit of everything. I get to touch in marketing. I get to touch in sales. I get to help product and operations drive their business. It just depends on what the organization needs at any given point.
I see. What does the broader data team look like?
So right now, I have a full-time data engineer who's responsible for, we have a handful of Python scripts that we've built and maintained over the years that play some of that ETL role. He helps keep our Power BI instance up and running, kind of our visualization, some of the mechanics and system administration that drives there.
Yes.
We also have 3-4 more analysts that support individual organizations within the org. We have a sales marketing analyst. We have a finance operations analyst. Our data engineer actually moonlights as our product and customer experience analyst. So as those organizations need access to data, analytics done, reports built, charts done, dashboards, they're there as their single point of contact to ask for the insights, ask for the analytics that they need. And then I get to stay mostly focused with our executive team and helping them answer the questions of the day as they need, but also get to float around and guide, mentor, teach, share experience with some of the more junior folks on the team that are embedded in these other orgs.
Man, this is great. We're getting this X-ray view into your data organization within this web hosting company. I'm fascinated at the ratio that you have, Wade, between the data engineer, there's one of them, and 4 data analysts. Is that a reflection of the maturity of your data stack to where you're able to run it with just one engineer?
I would say that that's more of a reflection of using what we have with who's been around. We've had some turnover in the team over the last few years. So I talked a little bit about how built all of this kind of from the ground up. And then 3 years ago, I actually went to play in the venture capital space. So I left Liquid Web for a couple of years, built up a new stack and did a bunch of things there, delivered that. And as venture capital does, we ran out of money and I got a chance to come back home, which was good. In that 2 years while I was gone, the leadership, various interim people made some decisions and drove some things. They got some people in the door to help keep the lights on of what we had built previously. And so the team makeup now is mostly a factor of what decisions were made through that time. I think that we're a little bit light on engineering capacity. And I'd work with the team to talk about how we have room to level up all our analytics as well, and trying to help be more that trusted partner in the corner of our organizations, not to do all of the analytics, not to drive everything, but help them have access to the data that they need. And so,
right.
Is this makeup perfect? No, but is it where we're at today? It's functioning fairly well.
I got you. So this brings up something that I saw in the DBT community that made me chuckle. Someone said self-serve is a myth. What's your take on self-serve? How well is it working in your organization? Do you have aspirations to grow it or leave it as is?
This is a existential question I'm facing right now. Whatever I say, I'm probably going to disagree with it in a month. But where I'm thinking right now, I have 2 customer sets internally. I have a set of executives who come to me frequently and say, we have too many reports. We have too many dashboards. We can't even understand what data we have. We need you to take access away from the organization so that we can stay focused on North Star metrics that matter. And so that's one set of very loud voices in my head. And then there's another set of very loud voices in my head of people that are saying, we're starving for data. Please just give access to the database so that we can get in and answer the questions that are being asked of us faster, quicker, stronger kind of thing. Like that highlights the fact that there's different audiences, different customers of self-serve. Our executives want to self-serve in a very focused way. Just tell me how many customers I have. What's our churn rate? What's our new logo acquisition? These are the 5 numbers that I need. And don't distract me with all of your technical jargon of, well, do you mean this type of customer? What about channel? And what about, how did the sales flow get in? Like, I don't have time for that. Just tell me how many new customers I have and what we need to do to get more of them. Self-serve in that regard is simplified dashboards and reports. But all of the people clamoring behind them to go execute and drive the business, self-serve to them means we need to know which customer to pick up the phone and call because they're having a bad time this month. We need to know which mix of product and channel and ad campaign is the one that's working. So we need access to understand and dig into all of this data, and you can't build enough dashboards in the world to solve that problem. We have to get to the raw data.
Wow.
I think a big chunk of my job over the next few months is likely going to be unlocking the data insights that we have in our data warehouse and helping people self-serve and in a controlled and functional way. We've got 1,000 models or something like that in our data warehouse of all sorts of different things, pocket analysis. We build an analysis for this report, we build an analysis for this report, and they all get kind of pieced together. am thinking that a very simple, here's our customer table, here's our subscription table, here's our server table. Let's publish these 10 things that will drive a lot of those insights and help unlock that while we keep a lot of the messy information, specific customized analysis stuff kind of closer to the chest.
Wow. This is intriguing. These are almost like first world problems in the data world, in that you actually have a mature enough and a modern enough data stack to where now there's so many different things you can do. And the executives are saying, slow down, keep the main thing, and don't distract with all the shiny toys.
Maybe because it's easy for them to get into the meetings and get distracted by, well, what about this insight? Dig in and filter this report and slice this, and you get down the fact where your CEO and your whole C-suite is spending an hour filtering and analyzing reports when we need them to go drive action and go do some other things. So
that's hilarious. That's hilarious. I'd be curious, Wade, on the question of why DBT. So you've been in the unique position of building data stacks multiple times. At what point did you start thinking about DBT, and what problem was DBT solving for you?
We had gone through several vendors that had ELT baked into the product, and they had some sort of version control baked in. As we got into Snowflake and decoupled those things, it got to the point where I like to get back to my roots. I just like to write SQL. Pure SQL in a database terminal is, if I get to spend 4 hours writing SQL in a database terminal, that's like the perfect day for me.
Oh my gosh.
And so, and I had built a data team around me that felt similarly. And so we got Snowflake installed. We had all of this information logic built in views and tasks in Snowflake. And it became to the point where version control was a significant problem. And so we had all of these views. We checked them into a Git repo, and then we used the Snowflake API Git DDL to say, all right, we have a Git repo over here and we have a database over here. They should match. And so every night we ran a cron job that said, take the data out of the Git repo, take the data out of the API, compare them. And if something's not right, pop a message in channel that says, hey, something about these don't match. Go fix it. And we iterated on that through Python scripts and APIs and Slack messages over the, course of a couple of years. This is 2019 as we're starting to build this. So the DBT's around, but still calling themselves Fishtown Analytics. Okay. DBT exists as a project, but it's not the default answer for data engineering at this point. And so we built it ourselves, and we got far enough down the point where by the time we heard DBT, we said, yes, that's the answer to the problem that we've solved. But we already have all of these solutions working. We don't have time to go back, and we've already replatformed 3 times.
Right.
We're finally delivering value. We're not going to go do this again. And so it was around that time, 2022, where I left to go work for Samcart. Samcart was reports were running in Excel and Google Docs, and that was the entire data stack. So I was able to say, I know what I'm doing. I'm coming in here. DBT's the answer. I don't even know what it is, but I know that once we get there, this is going to be the solution. And got that spun up within the first 45 days on the job there, and have never looked back. It makes life so much better.
Incredible. That's pretty cool. I'm loving these stories. This is really, really entertaining to walk your journey with you. But everything's sounding a little too rosy right now, Wade. Everything's sounding a little too good. We're going to have to expose some of those skeletons in the closet. Okay. So we want some data disasters. We want to talk about the calamitous occurrences. Could you walk us through a difficult technical situation that you had to tackle and show us how you thought through the process of resolving it?
Well, let's see. Here's one that we just started going through this morning, actually. Our affiliate team came to us in the last couple of days and said, affiliate conversions on our website have fallen off the last few days. You look at the chart, we're going along, and then on a specific date, it drops 70%. That's something unusual. Seems obviously broken.
Yeah.
And so from my role as having been involved in several of these software projects and projects websites, I know a lot of the technology of what goes into from client side all the way through to server side callbacks, and cookies and everything. And so my technical problems typically start with somebody coming and saying, my report's broken. Why is it broken? and having to piece the way back through, all right, this number that gave you a heartburn is on a report in Power BI that comes from this table in Snowflake that pulls data from this impact radius thing, that pulls data from the website, that pulls data from our internal web. And so walking people through the fact that here's all the places and points in that chain that can break.
Wow.
One of the things where I get to provide a lot of value in my data analytics hat is I know that data analytics is this part of that chain. But at some point in my career, I've touched that whole chain. So I can take people and business users and marketing folks through, hey, we need to go look at this, and we need to get this person in the room because he's the one that manages that API that sends that callback. And we laugh in data channels all the time of, this report's broken, the data team's broken. These are disasters that we run into frequently, but helping people understand that it's not necessarily a data disaster. Let's go first figure out, is this a business problem? And then get the right people in the room to have the conversation, work through the technology, and know where to point to say, right here is where the JavaScript didn't fire to create the cookie to flag the affiliate transaction, which meant when the transaction went through, it didn't get flagged in the source database to now show up on your report incorrectly. So that's a more typical one, but I do have another fun story.
That was a great one. I want to hear the fun one as well, but I would love to comment that it seems like having domain knowledge of network systems and the web hosting industry in general has allowed you to bring so much more value than simply just delivering on ad hoc data requests from the exec team.
Yes. I talk a lot about how my superpower is knowing how everything works and being able to learn it and pick it up quickly. The data teams that I have seen that focus only on the visualization layer and the pulling data out of one database into another and miss that context behind there, struggle to make good decisions. Like, ultimately, we're providing data to make good business decisions. And business decisions are not because this line chart went up and to the right. Those business decisions are, what's the story going on? How does the business function behind that?
Wow.
And so one of the things that I challenge, like a story I tell my analysts frequently, is we watch the movie Moneyball. There's this scene in Moneyball where Jonah Hill's sitting in the corner and Brad Pitt's arguing with all of the baseball executives.
Yeah.
And one of the executives looks over and Jonah Hill just kind of gives a nod one way or the other. And that's the only thing that he does in the whole room. Brad Pitt comes out after, they're like, what happened in there? Why did they look at you? Why do they care who you are? That moment of being in the room and being able to give the head nod one way or the other is why we're here. That's what we do.
Easy.
And so if you don't have that context, if you don't understand why the business is going, like, yeah, you can look at a report and say, yes, that one's up and to the right, that one's down and to the left, then something's bad. Understanding what we need to get there and being that strategic advisor is where I see a lot of the value of what we do.
Oof, I love that. And I love that movie. Not a baseball fan, but I just loved the analysis that it changed the game. That way of looking at players and analyzing trends. And that's a really cool reference. Is that, I should ask, is that your favorite data analytics movie, or do you have another one that comes to the top of the list?
That would have to be the best. Like
that's the one.
Yeah. There's one called 21 about card counting in Vegas. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
There's some, card counting is just fast-paced data streaming analytics. You're streaming information in from the cards as they flip. Moneyball's the one that we go to all the time. Every time I get a new member on my team, I'm like, here, this is required reading. You have to go dig into this one.
That's great. That's too good. That's it, folks. You got to adopt that. I love that. I love that approach. What was the other story? We want to hear the crazy story.
All right. So this is just the story of a bad join. Back to my Bluehost days where we would test things, we would find a bug, and we would go write a database query to see how many times that happened. We found a bug where we were giving domains away for free. There was a path where somebody could come through, click the right buttons, get a domain, and then cancel their account. And so they would get the domain for free. Domain camping is
why couldn't you tell me this 20 years ago?
We knew this had happened, and the fix for it was going to be a big dev project. We didn't have time to focus on it. But at some point, it came across the desk of our CEO founder that this existed. And he said, I want to know how many times this happened. Every time we sell those domains, it costs us $5 or $10. Somebody go tell me how much money we're throwing away because of this bug that's been in the system that we've known about for 2 years. Like, I can't believe my software testing team is so stupid that they would let this sit there for 2 years. And somebody went off and wrote a query, and it wasn't me. They said, there were a couple joins that had to go in there to get the customer table and the domains table and the vouchers table.
Okay.
And it came back out as something like we had given away 200,000 domains. So that was like a $2 million problem. And they said, tell the CEO that we gave away $2 million because of this problem. And he lost, put yourself in his shoes of, we just took $2 million, put it in a bucket and lit it on fire. And we've known about it for 2 years and nobody told me. Back a little bit, because we said, no, we've dug into this. We know that this was not a big problem. We fixed the cross joins where somebody had written a join statement incorrectly. And it turned out it was like $1,000 problem that we had already spent more time arguing about it than that. And so he calmed down. He didn't apologize for the colorful language, but I put myself in his shoes. I understand where he came from. It was just a bad join that caused several people a really bad week.
Oh my gosh. Just
so
a
that's
bad
the fun
join.
Story.
How bad could a bad join be? $2 million.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's a great story. And in fact, you talk about that unfortunate situation of the CEO getting this bad information, losing it with the team. So how do you mentor your team to handle stress, deadlines, or even unreasonable requests from stakeholders?
This is another good one. So we've got a fairly small team.
Yes.
I saw a video on LinkedIn the other day of a Formula One racing pit crew. They had 2 F1 cars come through, and in about 17 seconds, they had changed the tires, gas, and go for both of these cars that come through.
Unbelievable.
The LinkedIn post was talking about how we need to have all of these processes and tools and work as a team. But all I saw when I looked at that video was we've got 35 people that are sitting here for the 8 hours of a race. It's incredibly inefficient. It's incredibly, there's a lot of waste here around getting to that 17 seconds of high performance. And I say waste because it's inefficient, but it was built for a very specific type of efficiency. To be able to change those tires in 17 seconds was worth the $100,000 they paid for that pit crew to be there that day, or whatever the number was. And so when I talk to my analytics team, I say, we as an organization have made intentional investments in the crew that we have. And so you can go down to the corner garage and have your tires changed in 20 minutes by some guy named Joe.
Right.
It takes one guy and $20 and he'll rotate your tires for you.
Yep.
Or you can pay $100,000 for a whole team of people to do it in 17 seconds. We have made investments and decisions to say, this is the team that we have invested in. Yes. And therefore, when the business comes and says, why aren't you performing at F1 levels in 17 seconds? We can stop, because it feels really good to be on a high-performing team that can change that in 17 seconds. And sometimes we can. We get models and pieces together that we can turn around reports very quickly for ad hoc analysis. And sometimes it takes 20 minutes with the guy in the corner to pull the tire out, pull the jack up your car. It takes some time. And sometimes, if that's the level of investment that we make as a business, then take a deep breath, let the stress go and say, this wasn't your decision that put you here. This was a business decision. So be friendly, be kind. This is not a screw you, stupid executives. We don't have time for that. No, be friendly and do service with a smile, but also recognize that sometimes people are going to ask for the F1 crew at the corner garage, and that's just, they're shopping at the wrong store.
Gotta use that, man. That is powerful. That is gold. And as you pointed out, sometimes, even though you've invested in Team Joe, shout out to all the Joes, you invested in Joe, who does a very competent job. He serves with a smile, and he changes and rotates those tires in 20 minutes consistently. Sometimes Joe and maybe a couple of guys in the back might be able to do that 17 seconds, but the F1 team is doing 17 seconds every single time. They are built for that. So don't expect Joe, even if by some miracle Joe does the 17 seconds once.
Even if he can do it exactly.
That's it. Don't come back to Joe asking for the same thing.
Yeah, we've really talked about that a lot. I chuckle saying that I've through this budget season have pulled 17-second rabbits out of the hat, 17 times in the last 3 months and worked way more hours than I should have. It's a balance. You gotta stop, you gotta rest, you gotta take care of yourself. And as long as you set expectations and help people understand, part of the problem is like, if you can change the tire in 17 seconds that one time with your buddies in the back, that starts to set expectations. Well, why can't you do that? You did it for me last time. And sometimes that's because you don't have all the models or the data, or like you have to go pull data out of some new database that you've never touched before.
That's true.
That becomes a data engineering cross-functional task.
That's true.
In an executive's mind, it's just new data. Why can't you just export the data by shoe size instead of by month? Right. We don't know what our customer's shoe size is.
I love that. This is really good. We've talked about disasters a lot. People might start getting PTSD. So we got to shift to some happier stories here. You've mentored a lot of data professionals coming up. I'm curious as to what advice you might give.
Moneyball is like the first conversation that I have with new analysts coming in. There's a couple other like one-liners that I've heard over the years that I collect and share with people. And so I'm going to share a couple of those. I had a teacher in high school who always told me, this was an engineering teacher. He taught me how to build and manufacture metal stuff. He was a guy that knew a lot about how to do things. And he would always say, those who know how will always have a job. They will always work for the people who know why. Whoa. And so that like 15-year-old me stuck with me for a long time. And so when I talk to our analysts, there's a lot of paths you can go and say, like, here's the SQL and the Spark jobs, and here's how you're going to do technology. And those are useful skills to know, but I always try and keep them focused on, remember why you're doing those things. Put yourselves in the shoes of that baseball executive to know what he cares about and what we need. That way you can know where to nod the head one way or the other. So that's a one-liner that sticks with me quite a bit.
Man.
There's another one that sticks with me that's, be so good they can't ignore you.
That one, Cal Newport.
Is that one where it came from? Yeah.
Yes, it's a great book. Oh, yeah, you got to check it out. I'll send you a link after.
I heard that one from a guy in the software testing space. James Bach says it frequently. Yes. But when we talk about those 17-second changes, sometimes it feels good to do that and look for those opportunities to jump in and provide a lot of value. This isn't to toot your own horn. This isn't like go out and look for ways to say, look how amazing I am. Put your head down, do a good job, and grind it out, and people will see. So there's a balance there. That's one line of thinking.
Wait, I'd love to expound on that. Be so good they can't ignore you piece.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of the fact that a lot of data professionals find themselves fulfilling service requests. Somebody was telling me recently in one of these conversations that there are only so many levels of complexity that you're going to run into in the data analytics world. At a certain level, you would have solved most of the hard technical problems, and it might just become more of fulfilling these individual requests. But if all you're doing is fulfilling requests, like you're an order taker, your skills might start to atrophy. So looking for interesting new problems, looking for that crew that on the weekends that is doing the 17-second tire rotation, tire change, maybe working that into your diet every now and then could be good for you.
Yeah, I like that. But that actually speaks to a couple things. One of the reasons that I was looking to leave Liquid Web early on was I felt like we had gotten to that order taker space of, we kind of built the infrastructure. There was always work to be done, but I kind of wanted to go look for and find new problem sets. And so I found that at Samcart. In coming back, though, I realized that it wasn't that we had run out of problems. It was that I had ran out of vision of new problems to go solve. We had solved the important things that people were asking for, but there was a lot of things they didn't know to ask for. And that leads me to another favorite, which is don't be an order taker, be an order shaper.
Tell me more.
This one came from a engineering manager that I had at one point. He said, in the technology software space, we play that order taker role a lot. Product and the business come and say, give us this widget, and we say, here's your widget. His advice was don't ever get stuck in that. When they come and say, here's, give us this widget, ask a couple questions. Why do you need the widget? Who's going to use the widget? You know the customers really well. I know the technology really well. How can we take those things and blend them together? Because we could make this widget for half the cost if we did it this way. Or you're asking for this little button on the widget, but that's going to make it take twice as long. We could get it in 17 seconds if you just took that widget off or took that button off. And so having a conversation to shape those orders as they come in, if someone's coming in and saying, I need a report for churn this week. Why is churn so bad? You could say, well, we've got a churn model up here. Here's your churn data. Or you could say, I've been thinking about churn forecasting, and I was reading about how to do some forecasting models. Here's what history says, but here's some new modeling concepts that I'd like to try. Would this help you in your quest to understand and reduce churn? You take that opportunity to shape those orders and keep yourself sharp and ultimately drive the business goals that they're trying to get to.
Yeah, I love that a lot. Too many good stories. Tell us a story, Wade, of a data project that you're proud of.
I went through several iterations in Liquid Web as that kind of early time. And as we would go through this problem of different people in the organization asking different questions, for a lot of time, our executive team would get together. One of them would have one report I had published. Another would have a different data set I had published. One of them pulled data from somewhere else. And they would get in these board prep meetings or strategy meetings, and they'd be arguing, well, your data doesn't say what my data says. And why do these numbers not match? We got lost through that for a while. But at one point, my boss came and said, I just walked by a conference room, and there were 5 or 6 executives in there, and they had our data, but there was one dashboard, and they were talking about what to do about the data. There was nobody that had a different dashboard on their laptop, and they were arguing about things. That moment of watching our executives use the data and products we had published to actually do the job rather than argue about the data, I hold that as what we're driving for. That took us a couple of years. Fast forward, I got to Samcart. I learned a little bit. I had that moment in like 45 days. We had automated board deck automation. You could click a button, get all the data you need, put it in charts and everything, and now we're off and running. None of this manually exporting from 5 different systems into Excel. Those are some pretty good moments in life.
That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal. Any key mentors, Wade, or influences along the journey that you'd love to shout out? I
think a lot of the mentors that I've focused on have been, mostly in the business of how do we tie our business together. Like the data, the one-liners that I shared, I hold on to those a lot and kind of shout out the people there. A lot of my mentors have been CTOs, CEOs that I've gotten to work with over the last few years, people that are helping me understand how to take the data and run the business. It's been less about data mentors, more about business mentors.
Wow. Folks, don't skip past that one right there, because that is non-obvious, but I feel like that could actually make a very big difference in the trajectory of one's career. What pool are you even fishing in when you go looking for mentors?
It's my customers. I'm still trying to find that Jonah Hill moment. And so I have them frequently, but getting in bigger rooms with bigger people, with folks that understand where the data is and what they need to do their jobs. As you come in armed with insights and tools to help them be more effective, I don't seek them out. They come find me. And they come and say, Wade knows what he's doing. There was a phrase at Liquid Web for a while of all roads lead to Wade. Everybody needs to come find Wade to get the insights and data that we need. I don't like that. That's an anti-pattern. I want to empower people, but people find me. And when I'm having a time of my life right now with our new chief growth officer at Liquid Web. We've spent the last year together. Really digging in. I came back to Liquid Web about the same time he got here at the first time. So we've been about a year together, shoulder to shoulder, trying to understand and figure out what's going on, where we are, where are our opportunities, what are the new exciting things we can do to drive growth. I've learned a lot from him. He's learned a lot from me. It seems like it's been a good relationship.
I love that. I don't know why, but I envisioned, when you talked about the Jonah Hill moment, I envisioned you actually as the Emperor in Gladiator, and you're doing one of these.
Yeah.
This is great. All right, listen, we've been talking to the Director of Information and Analytics at Liquid Web. Do we call him the Clown Prince? I think I'll stick with maybe the Jonah Hill. He's the Jonah Hill of the data professional world. He makes his own maple syrup. And yes, he's juggling in a data meeting near you somewhere. Thank you, Wade Wachs. This was incredible.
Pleasure. Thanks, Bolaji.
All right, folks, this is the Data Careers Show. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.
This show is brought to you by DBT. dbt is the industry standard for data transformation. It allows your team to prepare data for analysis in a way that's centralized, modular, and entirely open, all inside your cloud data platform. The outcome? Consistently dependable analytics for your organization. Now, the dbt community was built for and by data pros. Come hang out and transform with 70,000 of the brightest analytics engineers, data analysts, and data scientists in the world. With dbt, you transform your data. With the dbt community, you transform your data career.